We are mocking here on this Monday. We're talking about the NBA draft. We're going through the lottery picks right now in order of the best to least chances of getting that #1 overall pick. That's the order that we're putting the lottery in. Kyle Boone, Adam Finkelstein here. Kyle, let's go with the Utah Jazz with the #1 overall pick. I will mention they have 14%, which is tied with the Hornets. You said the Hornets would be one of the worst fits for Cooper Flagg. How do you feel about the Jazz?
I feel like it's fine. It's fine. Look, I think Cooper Flagg and his talent is going to win out, regardless of whether he lands in Charlotte or Philadelphia or here in Utah with the Jazz. I think this is a good fit. Utah does not have a lot of foundational pieces around him. This is a situation where he's going to be asked to do a lot and do a lot right away. But, last season at Duke, his talent transcended college basketball in a way that we haven't seen in a long time. Led Duke to 35 wins. That was tied for the second most in school history. Led college basketball in box plus minus. And oh, by the way, in the process became the 4th freshman to win Naismith National Player of the Year, joining Zion Williamson, who went #1 overall, joining Kevin Durant, who went #2 overall, and joining Anthony Davis, who also went #1 overall. So the talent is there, and I think it could end up being a good situation for Cooper Flagg in Utah.
You say good now, but at the beginning you said fine, and you are one of the nicest people. So I feel like a fine from Kyle equals probably not great. Let's not hope for this situation for Cooper Flagg. Let's go to the Wizards at #2 here. We mentioned there are 2 top 5 talents from Rutgers. Kyle in his mock draft. Adam, I'll go with you for this one. Dylan Harper out of Rutgers. What would you think about this pairing?
Yeah, Boone and I are aligned here. I think Dylan Harper is the clear-cut #2 at this point in time. A big lead guard. Coming out of high school, he was kind of combo-esque, but he proved that he is projecting as a big lead guard at the NBA level because he can make plays for himself and others. The big variable with Dylan Harper is the shooting. He was about 33% from the three-point line last year. Now, if he can pick that one up, there are star outcomes that are possible in the NBA because he's got terrific positional size, he's got good length, he's got a strong body, and while he's not going to win any dunk contests, he is a functional athlete who finishes really, really well around the rim. So if he gets the shooting, it's going to open up other aspects of his game and just unlock a lot of different things. And in Washington, that's a scenario where they are in straight rebuilding mode. They are playing the young kids, and he would have an opportunity to jump right in, get immediate minutes with the guys he's going to grow with, and not have the burden of immediate expectations in terms of wins and losses. I think this would be a win-win both for Dylan Harper and for the Wizards.
Yeah, and I love it here as well. Fink, obviously, I'm the one who made the pick, so I think it's perfect. Dylan Harper to Washington makes a lot of sense, and this is a guy who has a really strong pedigree. He's the son of former NBA player Ron Harper. He truly proved last season at Rutgers he can play both on and off the ball. I love his pacing, the way he plays the game. He's never rushed. He's never sped up. He controls the game, both with his ball handling and his playmaking. And he was really productive last season with Rutgers. Rutgers as a whole struggled this past season, but I don't think you can put that on him specifically. He was second among all freshmen in scoring last season, 19.6 points per game. So I think you could put him into the Washington Wizards right now and expect reasonably for him to be a contributing player very early in his career.
What's crazy is when I was researching for this segment, somebody, it was probably like Reddit or something, was like, how does Rutgers have 2 top 5 talents and they're not doing so well this season? Because sure enough, #3 overall to the Hornets, you have another player out of Rutgers, Ace Bailey. What makes him worthy of this spot here, Kyle?
Yeah, I think, Amanda, this is kind of revelatory of where this draft is right now. There's a tier break. There's a top 3. Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper Jr., and Cooper Flagg, I think, are the clear top 3. So, I think for Charlotte, you've got Brandon Miller. Ace Bailey may be a little bit repetitive in terms of the skill set, but Bailey, I think, is just a talent that you want to bet on. He's 6'10". He's a smooth, crafty scorer. Played most of his freshman season as an 18-year-old, still very, very young. Crazy athlete, too. Reminds me a little bit of Brandon Ingram in terms of his ability to put the ball in the hole. Just a fantastic scorer Brandon Ingram maybe with a little bit more athletic pop. So if I can sell you on Brandon Ingram with a little bit more athleticism, I think in a nutshell, you would take him number 3 overall in this draft, and that's why I'm taking him at number 3 for the Charlotte Hornets.
I think the key word with Ace Bailey is upside. He's got a wider range of potential outcomes than Cooper Flagg or Dylan Harper because the floor may be a little lower. And these are words we're going to use in the draft process, right? Upside, floor, things like that, all that scout speak. But the bottom line is the best case scenario for Ace Bailey is really, really high because he is a 6'9" plus wing. He is every bit as explosive athletically as Kyle said, and he's a tough shot maker. And those 3 things, that's an archetype of what is maybe in the highest demand in NBA roster construction today. So there are very legitimate star type outcomes at play here. The problem is there's also some uncertainty about what the worst case scenario could be. He's got a very low assist rate. He doesn't get to the rim quite as often as you would expect for such a great athlete. And the overall feel for the game can be a little bit questionable. So scouts are worried about those things, but there's no doubt if it all goes well, it could be a really, really good long-term thing. He had 39 points in a single game this year. He had 37. He had 30. So we've seen flashes of it. It's just about whether or not he can do it consistently. Now, when he's at his best, I've seen remnants of Tracy McGrady, but that's about 3 times in 30 so far this season. It's about what happens in those other 27 games.
I'm not too far from the control room, and when you said that comp, I heard whoa, whoa, whoa from in there. Let's go to the Pelicans at 4. Talking about a comp here, Kyle has them drafting a guy I've seen compared to Tyler Hero, Tre Johnson out of Texas. Adam, what do you think about that comp? And then, because you had such nice words to say about the Pelicans, how would you feel about him getting drafted there?
I don't hate the comp because he is an instant offense type scorer who is a tough shot maker and needs to pick it up on the defensive end of the floor. So I think there's a lot of validity to that. Thing you need to know about Tre Johnson is he's been a high profile player throughout his entire high school career. He was the #1 ranked high school player in the country at one point, ended up finishing in the top 5. And all he did at Texas was exceed expectations. He came in, he put up huge scoring numbers, and he did it with more efficiency than we expected. He also proved to be a better passer than we thought. So you're talking about a 6'6" scoring guard and a tough shot maker. And this guy's wired to score. He's a worker. He loves the gym. And he's going to have a hard time if he goes into a situation where someone tells him he can't be aggressive offensively. But if you need immediate points, and let's face it, New Orleans, when Zion Williamson is inevitably out of the lineup with injury, they need points. So this fit wouldn't be quite as bad. And I think Tre Johnson has earned a place somewhere in the top 5.
There's 2 players, Fink, in this draft that I would describe as a bucket. Ace Bailey and Tre Johnson is the other. He led the SEC in scoring as a true freshman this last season, led all of freshmen in scoring, averaging 19.9 points per game. And he was really efficient doing so. I thought that was really impressive and stood out at Texas. He was not just an empty stats producer. He really did score at a high level and shot 40% from 3. He was very efficient in doing so. Texas made it to the NCAA tournament. And I think the progression that we saw during the season as a freshman, as Fink kind of alluded to, is really encouraging. He came into college with kind of a description as someone who's a scorer, someone who's going to be a flamethrower, who can be an off-the-bench bucket getter, and he's certainly more than that now. I think we saw some playmaking, and I think at his size, he's someone who has some dynamism to his game on offense that I'm really high on. I'd be taking a chance with him in the top 5, and I like the fit here for the Pelicans at number 4.
You mentioned the size there. This next player we're going to talk about, there is some concern about his size. We're going to the 76ers at number 6 here, who just, they had a disaster of a season, 4th worst record in their franchise history this century. Kyle, VJ Edgecombe out of Baylor, 6'3", about 6'5", 6'6", if we're being generous, wingspan here. But then you hear words describing him like explosive. So what do you make of this prospect?
I love him. He's an interesting prospect who has steadily grown on me throughout this season. I think, started the season slow, as a lot of freshmen do. It's an acclimation process going from high school to the college level. But at Baylor, we saw a linear progression where he was not only relying on his athleticism to win, but he was winning as a passer. He's winning on dribble jumpers. He's winning getting downhill and attacking the basket. And, you know, he's someone who I think is really smart in being able to win with his athleticism, not just above the rim, but he was very aggressive attacking the basket and fit really well within Baylor's system, Scott Drew. So 34% on threes, a vertical athlete, someone who I think can play both ways at a really high level. This is a guy who I think is rising on NBA draft boards. And in fact, I think he could go as high as number 4 in this year's draft.
Yeah, I think VJ is probably the best single athlete in this draft. And what I love about him is he already embraces the defensive end of the floor. A lot of these guys who have been big-time scorers since they were younger haven't really gained a full appreciation for defense. VJ led the NIBC, which is now the EYBL Scholastic, in scoring when he was a junior in high school. So he's been a big name for a few years now. But he's already said, okay, I can embrace being a defensive stopper. Now, he's got to get better off the ball. But when you have someone with his athletic tools who can really change the game on that end of the floor, and then has shown such a linear progression, as Kyle said, in terms of his offensive skill set, he's really blossomed from an undersized wing into a true guard. His shooting made strides this year. We saw him take more on-ball reps. He played a little pick and roll. First, it was on the second side of the floor, and then there were even times when he would initiate possessions for Baylor. So when you have someone who gets rave reviews for his character, who is probably the best overall athlete, who impacts the game on both ends of the floor and continues to get better with each passing year, that's the stuff that top 5 picks are made of.
Listening to experts like you, watch him rise up those draft boards, because just a phenomenal review for VJ Edgecombe there. Guys, thanks so much. Hang on just a second. We have a lot to get to. So far, Cooper Flagg, the only Duke player off the board. That is not lasting for long. One of his teammates jumps at 6. We'll tell you who the Brooklyn Nets are taking coming up.